This time we're going to be taking a look at the oversized Borg cube for Star Trek Attack Wing. I already got mine out of the box, as you can see, but I just wanted to show the packaging. Unlike the normal plastic shells that everything else came with, this actually came in a really nice display type box. Got the clear plastics on the edges and these really nice foam pads to make sure nothing got destroyed in there. Got your image there on the side. Still got some styrofoam on it. And a description on the back of everything that came with it. A little bit about the episode it's from. And I don't know if you can make it out in the picture, but you can see the green pieces on here, and I'll kind of try to show those better when I actually get to the model to look at. But there's a holes in the actual model. Inside there's a green plastic, and the if you can get the light source to come through it, the whole thing lights up green. I'm going to crack mine open and put some LEDs in there like I've done with my other Borg ships. And definitely a cool idea on there. And we'll get in and take a look at this thing. It really is hard to get just how massive this thing is until you see one in person. I even had to change the way I set up my camera and stuff here to make sure I can get it all in. But we'll go through what comes in the pack here. And we have our Borg cube dial. You can see this one's just a plain cube, but the other one was a tactical cube. It has quite a bit of movement. That 6 forward is nice. Got your normal Borg rook type movement. The interesting one is the reverse maneuvers on this. I'm not sure if this is going to be an errata for all Borg or if it's just for this ship, but we'll get to that when we get to the special rules cards for the Borg cube. We have our Borg cube. You can see the movement. It has so many different options. I actually had to make a second column. It's kind of interesting. That 6 forward is really interesting. The movement on this is a little bit different than normal too, and we'll get to that when we get to the special rules cards. There we have our named Cube 112. It's unique, Borg faction. You get the 6 attack, 10 hull, 10 shield. You get 3 Borg upgrades, tech upgrade, a weapon upgrade, and a crew upgrade. One of the interesting things, this is the first ship where the points formula wasn't double the stats. So in this one where the stats add up to 26, it should be 52 points. It's actually 82, so maybe they actually took something else into consideration. You get target lock, scan, and regen. So named ability on this one is instead of making a normal attack with your primary weapon, you can fire at up to 4 different ships at range 1 to 2 with 4 attack dice against each. If you do, you spend 1 drone attack for each of these attacks after the first. So instead of using your normal 6 attack, you get 4 attack, but you can actually get up to 4 different attacks in a single turn, which is pretty nice. Then we have our generic version, just a Borg cube. You lose the 1 shield, 2 points cheaper, and you lose 1 of the Borg upgrades. For our captains, we finally get a copy of Locutus everybody's been waiting for. He's unique. 7 points, 1 elite talent. At the start of the game, he starts with 9 drone tokens. And as an action, you can target a ship within range 1 to 3, spend up to 2 drone tokens, and disable 1 active shield on the target ship for each drone that you spent. You cannot deploy this card to the same ship or fleet as Jean-Luc Picard. Then we have our generic drone. He's free, starts with 1 drone token. So unfortunately, I was kind of disappointed the cube here didn't come with any kind of upgrades or anything. You got your captain and your ships, and that's pretty much it. It does come with a scenario since it's a retail pack, which is nice, and all of the various tokens. You have your 10 shield tokens here, your turning template, which we'll get to when we get to the special rules cards. There's Borg drone captain tokens there, which I've explained. If you haven't seen them by now, they were way back in the Spear video, I think, where we went over how they worked, but you can check that out if you don't know. We have our auxiliary power and critical tokens, the scan, target lock Y1 this time. I mentioned before that they nerfed down the Borg to make them playable as a player faction. And while they're nerfed down from what they should be, they're still a little overpowered compared to the other factions. But at the same time, they're way weaker than they should be, and this mission kind of proves that. The mission that comes with this one is the Battle of Wolf 359. And if you remember, it was an iconic battle from Next Generation where the cube took out a whole fleet of like 39 ships before it could be stopped finally. And the only reason they stopped it was because of Locutus. But anyway, the battle in this one is quite a bit smaller. It's 150 points versus 150 points. The Borg player gets the cube and it's fully decked out with whatever you want, up to 150 points. Where the Federation player only gets a minimum of 3 ships in their 150 point. So it's 3 ships versus the cube instead of 40. But still a fun scenario. There's a whole card on special abilities that the cube gets for this scenario. They regenerate faster and it can do a few other things. And it comes down to a destroy whoever dies first. Really cool little scenario. I haven't actually got to try it yet. I'm way behind on scenarios, but definitely going to give this one a try. It was part of the reason I bought this, was to come up with some scenarios for myself in the very least. So definitely going to try that one. The cube here comes with 3 rules cards, double-sided. They're numbered, which is nice. The first one here is just basic stuff that all the Borg have had. Talks about Borg upgrades being limited to Borg ships with the icon. Explains the drone tokens. Again, it's so much easier to see these actually in use, so if you're just getting into Borg and you haven't seen it yet, go back and check out the Borg Spear video, and at the end there's a little tutorial on how the drone tokens work, and it's so much easier once you've actually seen it done. On the back of this one we have the regenerate ability, which hasn't changed, and then we start getting into the new rules about the Oversize base. And the first one here is nothing special. It just basically explains what side is the front, and in the way that the card sits on there, there's one peg that designates the front side. That's going to be flush with a square edge. You can see the outline on there. The back two are kind of going to be in corners. That's how you tell what direction is the front. And there's no actual slot to put the captain token in, so it just kind of sits on the base. Now this next one is about the maneuvering of the cube. It does not maneuver like a normal ship. It maneuvers similar to a Borg ship, but with a few exceptions. Number one being that the base is round instead of square, so they had to do something different with that. And for doing the spin maneuvers, we get this cool little template, and you actually spin, you put it up against a peg and spin the ship 90 degrees, and then line it back up with the peg. But yeah, they have diagrams here, and I'll actually give you an example afterward. But you put the template up against the peg, you rotate so that the front peg is now touching the other side of the template, and that's how you do your 90 degree to do your spins. And then you move your move template after. And this is another one that changed because of the width of the base. If you moved the normal way with a one template, your move would be huge because of the width of the base. So what they do in this is you put the template there, you move another template to the other side just to mark where it ends. Then you take out the template in the middle and slide yourself over so you touch the second one. So basically you're only moving the width of the movement that you choose, not the width of that plus your base like you do with all other ships. And now one of the interesting notes that they mention here at the end is that if you're doing a 180 spin maneuver, you repeat the step for doing the 90 twice. Now this is very different because in the other ships they actually claim that those reverse maneuvers were actually just that, a reverse maneuver. So I'm curious to see if they errata the entire rule for Borg to make them all have that 180 degree spin, or if it's just something unique to the large cube. Definitely want to see a ruling on that. And the last section here is about overlapping the base. Ships that overlap the base don't back up like they do on normal ships. You still use your action for the turn, but you actually leave the ship on the base, and there's enough room under there to fly under with a single peg of pretty much any ship in the game right now. And they can literally fly right underneath you. As long as part of the base is still within your front fire arc, you can still shoot. but you do lose your action for overlapping. The cube does not lose its action for overlapping, which is nice. The only time you would move backward like you normally do when you overlap another ship is if you actually overlap one of the pegs holding the base up. In that case, you back up. And then the last card in here is for marking ships. If your ship is parked on the base and the cube moves, it's its turn. Basically what they have you do is pick one of the longer templates, like the 4 or 5. You put it down, move yourself, leave the template next to that ship. After the cube is moved, you use the same template to move yourself back to where you were. And I'll give you an example of that at the end. But basically it lets you move off the base so you can move the cube and then you put yourself back, right back where you were. Really easy once you see it done in practice. And that's what this whole side of the card explains. A lot of people have done videos on these, so it's really hard to get the thing in the camera. But you can see there's quite a bit of detail. It's painted like a metallic silver. A darkish wash on it would make things cool. It does, and I don't know if I can even get it. You can kind of see a little bit, like in here where my thumb is. It's transparent in spots, and there's like a green plastic behind it. And if you get the light just right, the light comes through these with the green glow. So as soon as you get some lights inside of the thing, it'll be really cool. Very difficult to show though on the camera. Once I get some lighting in there, it's going to bleed out of those holes though, and you'll really be able to see it. The thing is massive. And the other downside is that once you get the base attached, it's pretty much permanent. It kind of snaps onto these little pegs here. And they're very difficult to get off. I've seen some stories of people pulling these off and they actually snapped, so I don't even want to try it. If I had a complaint about it, my only one would be that the doesn't actually clip in. It just kind of sits in there, just like the DS9 one. The problem with it is when you pick it up, it comes right off. So big it's hard to fit on camera there, but there's your base. So your main stat line, that 360-degree arc. And when you do play, this is going to be the front of your ship. Where the foot lies on this will be on a flat edge of the ship. These two will be in corners. And there's your generic. So again, it's really hard to get a feel for this. So as I said before, it's really hard to get a feel for the size of this thing on the video. So to kind of give you some perspective there, that's how big you're looking at. Why? So this is your Enterprise-D from Attack Wing. And if you put the Parker on top of there, it kind of gives you an idea for scale. And there's your tactical cube. And again, for scale, yeah, you're looking at about 3 tactical cubes high, so you're looking around 27 tactical cubes combined to be the volume and size of that thing. So definitely a massive ship. Alright, so we got a little bit different angle here, so I can kind of give you some examples of movement and some of the special rules that go with the cube. First thing going to be, we're going to do a 2 to the right, which in Borg terms you're going to make a 90-degree spin to the right and then move forward 2. For this we're going to use this 90-degree template. And there's a little notch on the edge of these pegs. And that's how you're going to do it. This is actually the front. I just wanted to show you because you can't see the one in the back. But you end up putting it just like that. They stick out just a hair so they'll touch flush. And what we're going to do is put it on the closer edge of this one back here. And you're going to hold it with your finger. And you're going to take the base and you're going to rotate it 90 degrees until that edge touches there again. And then you're done with that. Then you're going to put your 2 template on here just like you would your normal movement. And this is where it differs than normal. You're going to take another template, it doesn't matter which one it is, and you're going to put it on there like that. You're going to hold this one with your finger, remove the one that you're moving, and then you slide yourself up so that this peg fits right in there. And that's how you do your movement. Another example of something that can happen is, say we have our Enterprise here.
We're just going to put her there for example. The Enterprise is going to take a 3 forward on its turn. Just like normal. You move yourself up. As you can see there, we're actually overlapping the base. Unlike a normal ship, you don't back yourself up until you're not under the base anymore. You're actually going to leave it there. And because the base, circular part of the base of the cube is within our front arc, it still counts as being in our front arc, and it's definitely range 1, so you can still shoot. The entire time you're under there, you're within range 1 of the cube, so it can shoot. You do lose your action for overlapping, that's the downside. If for some reason your front of your base was hanging off of there so that the front arc could not touch part of the base, but say the back end of your base is still touching its base, you still lose your action because you're still overlapping a ship, but you cannot fire because it's actually out of your arc. Say we're in this situation and it's the cube's turn to move, there's another special rule covering that. And the first thing we're going to do is take some random thing. We're going to say the cube's going to pull a 3 forward and go the same way it's going just for this example. The first thing we're going to do is take some template. I just happen to have this one here. And we're going to mark it on the ship. And we're actually going to back our Enterprise up to here, well out of the way. Then we're going to take the template we used and leave it next to the ship. And you do this for every ship. And the reason you leave the template there is so you can remember which ones you used. Any ship that was touching its base, this is how you're going to do it. Any ship that's in its way, this is what you're going to do. Then we're going to take our 3 forward, do our normal maneuver with the cube. Mark there. Mark the end of it with another template. I don't even know if this is still on camera, but... And then you're going to slide her forward to the other template. Now that that's done, we take the same maneuver template we used, put it back, and we're going to put our Enterprise right back where it would have been. And now it's no longer under the base, it's no longer within the fire arc, so it can't shoot at the cube, but the cube can shoot at it. That's pretty much how you mark ships and move them. The only thing that's a little bit different is if when you move, or when the cube moves, the ship moves into one of these pegs here. You're actually going to back up just like you would overlapping a normal base until the ship does not overlap anymore. Other than that, it pretty much follows the normal rules as far as those go. Overall, it's a really cool looking ship. The model itself is really nice. Mine has a little bit of a flaw in it, but I think I may be able to fix that when I pop it open. I'm going to put some lights in there, definitely. Its size, it makes it intimidating. It's not an overpowered ship. Thanks to the new points calculating system, it's pretty balanced for what it does. But it definitely looks cool on the table, has plenty of room for upgrades. The downside is that with the new tournament rules, even though this is a tournament legal ship, because of the way the new tournament rules go, the points cost is over the normal minimum, so about the only thing you can put on there is a captain. Most of the Borg upgrades are too expensive to throw in the limited amount of points they give you. It may be worth it for the ability to use the main weapon and fire at 4 different ships at a time, because your big weakness with a ship like this is going to be swarms. With 0 agility, it's the big weakness of any of the Borgs. The more times you shoot at them, it's not necessarily throwing huge amounts of dice at them. Throwing multiples of small amounts of dice are what will eventually pick them off, because normally they can only target 1 or so at a time. The named version of this lets you target up to 4 ships at a time, so it kind of gives you a way to counter that. Still an interesting pack, definitely worth getting for anyone who plays Borg. Just wish it came with some more upgrades. I mean, I have plenty for my other ships, but it would have been nice to see another reprint of some generic Borg upgrades just to throw on here. The ablative armor, the cutting beam, that kind of thing. Things we've seen the cube use in the show. Anyway, that's it for this one, and I will see you in the next video.